You are listening to the Taps and Teas Show, weekly conversations for people passionate about marketing, golf, and craft beer. Marty is the co-founder of Bad Rhino, an award-winning digital marketing agency helping golf and craft beer brands get real results in social media marketing. Here is your host, Marty McDonald.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Taps and Teas. This is Marty McDonald, and today we're going to talk about something that is always interesting here in the agency world. A topic that when people reach out, they're in the last throes of their business or they can't figure anything out to kind of get sales moving or get people into their restaurant. And this has happened a couple of times during our 10-year career here at Bad Rhino. And the title of this episode is I Can't Save Your Business. And that's the truth. If you get to a certain point, we've had a few of them at this point, which is sad. And they're not honest about it, which makes it even worse because they're not being honest with themselves about where they're going to be or what they're going to do. They are having a tough time driving sales. That's what they're trying to do, obviously. They're stuck. And they think, hey, we've never really done any marketing, so let's finally bring an agency in. And, sometimes, I'm going to give you a couple examples here, and I'll talk through them. But the common thread is they're just not being honest with themselves. And I'm a big proponent of entrepreneurship. I love small businesses. I love working with small businesses. Everybody starts somewhere as well. And this is, the fourth business I've started or been a part of a start. And there's always some struggle, right? And when you get to a tail end of something, and luckily I've never, knock on wood, been there where everything doesn't work and you're having struggle paying the bills, it wears on you. And sometimes within a business, you hit what I call the beginning phase, the honeymoon phase, whatever you want to call it. And people are luck, is what you probably boil it down to. People are getting customers by luck. They open a restaurant. It's in a great little spot. They start to get rolling. They have some regulars. Everything keeps going. But they hit a point where it's the same people coming in. It's not enough people coming in to pay the bills or make any money. And they look back over things and you know what? The only thing we've never really done is marketing. And then they reach out to an agency or multiple agencies. So I'm going to give you three examples. The first example is that restaurant example. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more. The second one is a t-shirt company that was kind of like a bummer to watch kind of fall off because the concepts and everything else were going pretty well. And the third thing is just a brewery location, opening another location without really doing their due diligence of where they're at and then skimping on their marketing. And they'll, see what happens. It's just kind of like one of those things. So each one of them has a little bit of lesson. We're going to keep these short. These are kind of mini rants of this little season that we're doing here. But let's get into it. So the first one was a restaurant. I think it was 2014, might have been 2013. We were contacted by a restaurant and two men owned it. And, everything seemed perfect. They presented everything to us. They said, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get more people on Monday and Tuesday nights. And that was a lot of fun because they had a focus. So when they came to us like that, it made you believe that, hey, all the other 4, 5, 6, 7 nights, going through, a 10-day stretch, we're doing really well. And they had a handful of events through the month that happened to be on Monday and Tuesday that they wanted to pull additional people in. And this one probably was the worst one just because we were making it work really, really well. And we were getting people in there on Monday and Tuesday, so they're slow nights. So they're immediately seeing results, right? They're like, this is awesome. We love this. We're getting people on Monday night and Tuesday night. They had different theme nights, and it was working really well. So Rich and I, my business partner Rich, we're like, this is great. We're doing good. This is all working out. All they really did need was some tweaks, and then the bottom started to fall out, right? So the first month they paid, the second month they paid, the third month, check was late or payment was late. And we were like, all right, it was kind of odd. So we called them, it's about the 15th and we still hadn't received payment. And they were like, oh yeah, that'll be, coming to you. And then a week later, still nothing there. They said, "Oh, we just sent it out today. Apologize for the lateness." And I mean, sometimes in restaurants, much like other business, you have a mini, cash flow crunch. I can totally understand that. I can totally relate. But at the same time, we're running a business as well. So after the 21st, the check didn't come, and I was like, all right, this is going to get a little uncomfortable here. Something's going on. And we went over there on a Friday, or I went over there on a Friday and it was closed. Like, restaurants closed on a Friday. So we made a phone call and find out there was some sort of family emergency, and that's why it was closed. So they're cranked back up Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Everything's going along pretty well, and we're just kind of like, wonder if we're going to get paid. Then the next thing you know, you get a frantic phone call about, "I can't pay you. We don't have any money anyway." And you're like, all right, that's not what I was asking. I'm just following up on payment. What do we need to do here? Do you want us to stop? Whatever. And unfortunately, the long and the short of it became they were going through bankruptcy, both business-wise and personal. They're selling belongings. They were selling everything just to keep everything open and running. And unfortunately, they just couldn't keep up both personally and business-wise, and they were going under. The bummer of the whole thing is they legitimately thought, and they sold it to us as in, if you guys can sell out Monday and Tuesday, for the next 8 weeks, and we have really good days there, the rest of our stuff is carrying us. And unfortunately, I wish they didn't lie to us. I wish they would have said, look, we're in the last throes of, a bigger issue here. We might go out of business. What we want to do is do a push because we need some extra cash. And we think the best thing is to really market our place for these events that we have Monday and Tuesday, because we have a cover, we have some live events, that we can, milk out some more revenue. And, that would have been nice. I mean, I know it's hard, for people to just kind of break out that ego and be able to tell that story, because you pour your heart and soul into a restaurant just like any other business. But really, they came to us, though, when we broke it down as the agency was going to be our lifeline, which we're okay with. Hey, bring the pressure on. That's what we're here, is to provide results. But we didn't do our own due diligence and ask them the right questions either. So that's part of that falls on us. I'm not naive to that. I'm not trying to sit there and say, like, this is horrible. I'm talking about more the mindset of that business owner and his partner going, well, if we can get these guys to do it, then everything could be okay for the short term. They were well underwater, when they came to us. So that was a bummer, because we were doing direct campaigns on Twitter. This is 2014, mind you. So there's a little bit different. When people would post or check in someplace on some of the apps like Foursquare, and that would go out to Twitter. And we were just going down those lists and targeting those people by location, saying, hey, have you gone into XYZ restaurant? You should come in Monday or Tuesday because this is the event. And we were driving, literally almost like picking people out of the crowd on Twitter and driving them to the restaurant. Then once they would get there, a lot of their friends would see that they were there. And it grew into these neat little nights that they were having. And it was, very much on the upswing. And we were like, this is a great strategy. We could leverage this for our other clients. And we did. And it worked brilliantly for them. And again, it was a different time. Now it's 2019. Certain things don't work anymore. But we were actually driving that in there. And it was awesome. But the bummer of it is they came to us like, hey, these guys can save our business. They didn't really think that way. They were trying to buy themselves another 8 to 10 weeks of revenue that they could kind of keep the lights on and pay any bills that they could as they're going through a bankruptcy process. So that's number one example. Number two, we'll talk about is a t-shirt company. So this t-shirt company, had a great brand, great logo, great idea, and great concept.
Hey, if you're enjoying what you're hearing on the show and want more, head on over to tapsandtees.info and get our free report with game-changing tips and strategies straight to your inbox. Just enter your info and stop being stuck with no marketing plan.
By the time they got to us, they had been through, I think at least one other agency, perhaps two, one other web designer, perhaps two as well. And they were looking for an all-inclusive platform. They wanted to do a couple of different things. One was print t-shirts on demand, so that they invested in machinery and everything else that could do that. They invested in some artists and some artwork, and they were working in the different niches that they were in. I go niches or niches, depends on the day. So they were really driving local stuff here in Philadelphia as well as national things. And, we told them up front, like, hey, I know you're kind of looking at this as a, 12 to 14 month deal, trying to, inject life into a company that you think could take off and the brand could take off. And quite honestly, we all sat around and we all agreed to that. And we all thought we had something. But we also knew it was going to be a bit of a process. Selling t-shirts online isn't very difficult, but it's also crowded, right? You have to really hit people with the sentiment of the moment if you're dealing with certain things. You really have to hit them with things that really connect with that community, and you have to test a ton of different designs. I mean, even the best places that sell shirts online, and I'm not going to list them here, but I think anybody listening to this knows a bunch of them. A lot of those shirts, definitely don't sell. They'll test them, and once they get one or two that'll work, they're going to advertise the heck out of them and try and get as many buyers as possible. So there's a lot of testing that goes into it. And the thing that like really just bums me is, there's some private conversations going on, and we were talking about different things as we got into the project. And we found out the main investor was basically saying like, this has to work in 10 months. And we were tracking right beautifully into that 10-month range. I mean, we started making different changes in month 1 and month 2, and we started to see some changes in website traffic and social media traffic, started to get some things that really started to catch on. Not like crazy, it wasn't like we were selling a million t-shirts, but we're starting to get traction. We're starting to get regular orders where we could start to scale the ad spend. We were starting to get different inquiries about different designs. We had people reach out that wanted to design shirts. It was really neat. But the thing is the mentality coming into it was we need to catch lightning in a bottle. And that's what I mean by, I can't save your business. The title of this little episode here is that if you're coming out to the point where you don't have enough money for a run rate to test all these things online for a commodity like a t-shirt, unless you have some giant influencers and some other things going for you, it's going to be a bit of a slog. So you're going to have to do that. And the worst part about this is as we started going through month 4 and month 5, we started hearing more and more that the investors were completely unhappy with other things within the business, and they just lumped us into the same thing. And I'll still never forget, we're sitting in our old office, and it was like August, and I'm presenting these numbers, and I'm excited, as well as my business partner and a couple other people around the table. And I'm like, we are finally at the point after these 7 months where we're now heading into the home stretch. We have 2 or 3 different shirts that we're selling pretty regularly. We're getting regular sales. We finally had everything clicking on the website. We finally started to really connect with the community and audience where we're getting social media engagement. Now it's just to test more and more designs. And, we were right there, literally right there. We were just about to break even on ad spend as well as, different costs. We're really doing well. And the next thing you know, the investor was just like, I'm out, like just like that. And it was interesting and it was a bummer because they came into it, can you save it? And we got right to, if you use a football analogy, we're just about to get to the end zone. I would say we were on the 6-yard line, not quite the 5, we were on the 6, about to be on the 5 and just drive this thing home. And as an agency owner and my team, we put a lot of work into it. We put a ton of work into it because we wanted to be on a revenue share after the fact. But we have to test some things and it takes a lot of time. And the bummer of that whole thing was like we were right there. You asked us to come in to save this. And just because it didn't happen in 15 minutes, but it's tracking, but you don't care about that. And there's some other stuff to go. I'm just, putting this in here without the mentality. They just pulled the plug and all the work was for naught. They would have been better off just keeping the 7 months of money that they had spent and pocketed, but they just wasted it at the tail end of a 4-year endeavor. And it was a bummer, but they looked at it like, can you get this online thing working? And we told them like, here's the time frame. We're going to have some success early, but to make this a long-term play with email and remarketing and everything else, we're going to have a high volume of, split testing, but we're also going to, need some time to kind of get this in here. And it was a bummer because, they came in with it and we did it and we were tracking in the right direction and we were just about there and they pulled the plug. So the lesson there is, when everybody's not communicating and not being honest with where they want to be, it's tough to save somebody's business like that. The last one, which will be really quick, is a brewery, and they opened a new spot, and they really just didn't do their due diligence on the spot. Is it going to be a successful spot? I believe it will be. It's just taking a little bit more time because of where it's at in the town and where they're located. But it's another thing where they come in, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast, where you come in and you're like, let's do everything. Let's do SEO, let's do pay-per-click, let's do geofencing, let's do social ads, let's do. Then all of a sudden they just have a change of heart and they're like, we're going a different direction. And they're not following any sort of best practices going forward. They're not taking any of our advice, and we've given enough of it. And I'm not saying that we could come in, doing it and saying like, this is going to be perfect, but they're in a spot where notoriously, just over years in this town, people don't go down to that edge of town. So you have to use paid strategies to pull them in there, and they weren't willing to do it. So then now it's like, all right, we're going to pull it in-house, and the rumor is on the street that the whole place is going to shut down after roughly, a little less than a year. That's, bums you out, because at the very beginning of it, they had the right idea. They pulled in everybody, I think, in the town to kind of get buy-in on putting the place there and also changing some of the things, but they just didn't go that one extra mile. So that's a little bit different. If can you save my business? Hey, I'm going to open a new location here. We have multiple other successful locations, but we're not looking for what it is. And it really is one of those things where you're just like, what are we doing here? So with that, there's certain things when people have that mentality that we're going to hire an agency for a specific location or to save a business, and they don't put everything together. But they're also not honest with why that marketing may or may not work. They're also not honest with where their financials are and things like that. So I tell everybody, whether you're hiring Bad Rhino or you're hiring another agency, tell them as much as possible, even though some of the things might hurt. And the reason is, you come at it with a different thing. Like going back to the restaurant one, they were talking about, stuff that they wanted to do later in the year, like 6, 8 months, 9 months down the road. I mean, they just flat out lied. That just bums you out. But they gave a false impression, right? But then us as an agency, people start to see all those things online. They may or may not know it's us. But at the same time, we want to be successful. We don't want to enter into something that is disingenuous at the beginning. The T-shirt example, it's just not being on the same page with your investors. I think they made the right move in hiring us and our website design team. But what it was their main investor was just not on the same page, and you couldn't talk to them about anything that we were doing because they didn't care to understand. But meanwhile, we're spending their money. Makes no sense. Right? But they're looking at us for a lifeline. So it just doesn't add up. And then the last one is just not really recognizing the area you're in and just not listening to us as an agency of what you would need to do that, since it is in the town we're located in and we do know it. And, a couple of us have lived here for 20 plus years and we know how long it takes. We've worked with other restaurants in town, that we still work with, that we've been very successful with. And we've been able to get them over that hump when they first open all the way to year 3, year 4, year 5. And the thing is where we're located here is you have to build a community. And the fastest way you can build it is through paid advertising. They said up front that they wanted to do it, and then they backed out of it. So I can't save your business. No agency can save your business. But if you're entering into an agency relationship, just be as honest as possible. It'll help both sides. And with that, we'll move on. It's a little bit longer. We're trying to keep these really short. We'll have another episode coming up next week. Not really sure what the topic's going to be, but I think we're going to do a surprise. It's still going to be along these little rants, and we'll keep the next one a little bit shorter. So thank you for listening, and see you on the next episode of Taps and Tees.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.